All right, take two. Sorry, guys. I don't know what I accidentally clicked there, but whoops. Welcome back. Welcome back. Let's just jump right back on in. I'm so sorry if any of you had a question that uh, in the last chat that I didn't get to yet. But yeah, let's just pick on up. And yes, Chi-chan, definitely send the question again because yeah, definitely send it again. Sounds like a couple people wanted to have me answer that. If living in the end is knowing it's going to happen no matter what is living from the end and why is it important? Good question. Living in the end and living from the end it's the same thing, basically. They mean the same thing. Different ways of saying the same thing. Yeah. Hey, you. I feel like I've revised certain memories so much that I'm not sure which is the real memory. How would we even know anyway? That's the point. That's the point. To revise the memory to the point where the revised memory feels real, right? Or you can't differentiate between the two. I have memories that I'm not sure which I had experienced. Well, in this 3D timeline, I guess you would call it, that I actually experienced. I have memories that I know are revised, but I don't recall what the old memories were. So that's the point. Can reaching out in 3D mess up my manifestation? I've stopped now. I don't want to say that it's going to mess up your manifestation. That strikes fear in a lot of people to hear things like that. I try to be very, very mindful of my words, which is why I speak slowly and try to be methodical about it. If you're in a state that feels anxious, maybe a bit desperate and fearful, I personally would not reach out from that place. And we don't have to. We don't have to take that action in 3D. That's sort of the point. Whatever would need to happen in order for your manifestation to unfold will happen without your conscious knowing or needing to. If you are needing to do something, you're going to be moved to make that action unconsciously, right? So that's why most people are in agreement that there's no need to reach out in 3D and that it's not a good idea to do so if we're coming from a place that is very fearful. But that's not to say that it's going to ruin your manifestation. You can't ruin or mess up your manifestation. That's impossible to do. Like, we have the ability to delay things, what appears to us as a time lag, but we can't mess it up beyond recognition or to the point where we can't save it. Hello, Missy. I got your self-concept course and it's so articulate and clean. Love it. Thank you. Question. I couldn't quite grasp how to use the PDFs. Little help. Absolutely. If you have questions about the masterclasses and courses, definitely shoot me an email through the portal. There's a button that will allow you to contact me. So you can shoot me a message about that. What specifically you have. If it's an issue about printing out the PDFs, make sure that you download the folder that has all the PDFs in it, first and foremost, so that way you can save them to your computer, you can print them, you can do whatever you want from there. But yeah, definitely reach out through the portal, and I'll be sure to help you out, whatever direction you need. But I'm glad you're enjoying the course so far. That's wonderful. One only needs to fully accept the life they want in the 4D and ignore 3D conditions until they conform/shift, correct? Correct. Yes. Yep. First is the acceptance of the experience, the desire in imagination, and we, without taking into consideration or giving too much of our attention to what's going on in 3D. Yeah, it's taking the attention away from 3D circumstance or whatever might be the condition, whatever reason that we see is, and it's impossible. Like, take the attention and focus away from all of that, and keep it as much as you can fixed on the desired outcome until it is conformed. Yes, exactly right. Are dreams a form of imagination? Yes. Hmm. Yes. Your imagination is your internal world. That's the world that's happening in here, right? So it's your thoughts, it's your inner dialogue, it's your memories, it's, you know, it's your ideas, it's the, conceptions that you have about the future, all of that, everything taking place in the mind is taking place within imagination. That is all imagination. Yeah. Missy, what do you think about manifesting fictional superpowers and abilities? I've been seeing some people talking about this topic. I know anything is possible, but I'm curious about your opinion. Absolutely. Was that the question that, yeah, absolutely, Chichan. Yeah, and I know people are probably going to have varying degrees of opinion on this. Um, my opinion is always, there is nothing that is impossible to God. There is nothing at all that we cannot experience. Period. Now, to the degree in which that feels believable, to the degree in which we can accept that to be true, that's sort of the caveat. That's sort of, yeah, because for most that's going to feel impossible. That's going to feel unbelievable, right? But we cannot tell people you are God. Your awareness of being, your consciousness of being is God, but that it's also impossible for God to do something. That's complete contradiction, right? And so yeah. When I say anything is possible, genuinely and sincerely, I believe that anything is possible. If you can imagine it, you can experience it. Yeah. I am back. I am back, non-gom. My apologies for that. My apologies for the technical issue. We're back. Oh, good question. Good question, Goxie. I love this. What is the difference between self-inquiry and self-observation? That's an important one. I need to make a whole ass video on that one. So, self-observation is just that. It's the observation of you. It's the observation of self. So, the natural thoughts you have in the day-to-day, your natural reactions in the day-to-day, the typical ways of thinking, your inner dialogue, your beliefs and assumptions. So the observation of all of that, right? Um, the observation of your interactions with other people, your 3D circumstances. It's basically observance of self, right? Self inquiry is getting to the root answer of who am I, right? So it is inquiry into that observer, you know. So self-observation is just the observation of the conscious self, right? The self-concept, so to speak, or the ego. Self-inquiry is inquiry into the observer. So who am I? Who is this observer that is observing my thoughts? Who is this observer that is observing my surroundings and my 3D circumstances? So it's going deeper, basically. It's going much deeper into the awareness of being. And the aim in self-inquiry is to get you to a place where you see that you are not the ego self. Is we may know that and hear that, like intellectually, we may know that on a surface level, but until we really go within and inquire and experience the separation that we are not this ego self. Oh, let me back up. Maybe those aren't the right words. We are, but we are not. Like I and my father are one, but the father is greater than I. So we are so much more than just this limited self that we've identified with. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I need to make a video talking about that in more detail because self-inquiry is hands down the best way that I have used for detachment from all of the old stories and all the old conditioning. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Chrissy May. Chrissy Marie, sorry. I can't help but believe that the only way to do sats is by falling asleep right after the imaginal act or bringing the scene into sleep with you. How do we abandon this logic? Good question. Well, we abandon the logic by recognizing that that's not true, right? Um, we don't need to we don't need to literally take the imaginal scene with us into sleep, right? Because at some point you're gonna be alert, you're gonna be conscious and recalling this scene, and then the next moment you're there's gonna appear to be an abrupt drop off. So the point with sats is to, you know, you like imagine that scene, visualize that scene until you reach the point of satisfaction, until you reach the point of relief, until you reach the place where what you are imagining feels real to you. And then we can drop the scene and just relish in that feeling. And we want to take that feeling with us into sleep, not the visual scene itself. I hope that makes sense. But no, we don't need to continue to we don't need to bring the actual visual scene with us into sleep. I mean, we can, but that's not the ultimate aim there. It's the feeling that we want. The feeling is the secret. All right, let me go back to my spot. Would online dating essentially be doing something when we want new love? Should I just back away and allow love to find me? Good question. I mean, I'm not going to say that you have to get off the dating apps. If you enjoy being on the dating apps, you can absolutely do so, right? But what we don't want to do is condition our desire. So what I mean by that is we don't want to feel like we have to use the dating apps or that the only way that we're going to find love is if we're on the dating apps or things like that, because that would be a pure condition. We don't, and it's inherently not true. It's not that you have to use the dating apps to find new love, right? But if it's something that you enjoy doing and it's something that makes you feel good, I mean, I wouldn't say you need to stop doing it, no. But at the same time, if you don't like being on the apps and you prefer not to, that's fine too. Essentially, if the desire is new love, you just want to continue in perpetuating that feeling. You want to continue to go back to the experience, the state of what it would be like if you were now in a loving, committed relationship. And you just saturate yourself in that all day, as often as you can, morning, noon, and night. Yeah. I sometimes face blocks during visualizing, like the face fizzes away or blurs. It's rare and stays for a day or two, but feels very disturbing. How to deal with it? Thank you. I'm sorry. This is fairly common. If if visualization has not always been your strong suit, if it's something that some people have, seems to have more of a knack for visualizing. I certainly didn't. It was not something that always came naturally to me. Uh, but you can you can sharpen that skill, right? You can exercise that muscle to make your scenes more vivid and lifelike. That you absolutely can do, and there's exercises and things that you can do around that. I mean, that's sort of one of the main centers of my imagination masterclass is how to strengthen that muscle. But I have also made a video specifically about visualization. Um, but essentially, we deal with that through practice. Like the more that we practice, just like with learning any new skill, the more that we practice with it, the clearer and more lifelike representation that scene is going to be. It's going to have. So, and it doesn't need to just be with SP. You can practice it with other people. You can practice with objects. You can practice with landscapes, right? Just trying to, you know, practice getting the image as clear in your mind as you can throughout the day to day. But definitely check out the video that I made about visualization if you haven't seen it yet. But know that that is normal. The more that you continue to practice, it does get clearer and clearer. Yeah. Sometimes I feel guilty admitting I'm struggling because it goes against the wish fulfilled. Oh, Joe, no need to feel guilty. No need to feel guilty. I have yet to meet a person on this journey that did not struggle at some point. I've yet to meet one. And I've talked to thousands of people at this point, literally thousands of people. I've yet to meet anyone who did not at one point or another struggle on their journey, right? There's absolutely no need to beat yourself up or feel guilty about it. Again, this is something that it's a radical new way of thinking. It's a radical new way of being that goes very much against what most of us learn growing up, right? So it really does take practice getting acclimated to this new way of thinking. And it does get easier though. It does become more second nature. Again, just like with any skill that we continue to learn and we continue to practice, that skill is going to become more and more effortless. It's going to start to become second nature for us. Yeah. No need to feel bad. Thank you for the super chat. How do you let go of insecurities and jealousy with an SP? I used to think SP only had eyes for me, loves me, chooses me, but he refuses to take me out with him and it messes with my head. So I walked away. Any advice? Oh, I'm so sorry, Nangam. Yeah. And if it makes you feel any better, I had to do the same thing in with my person. Um, I was consistently getting triggered by him for a period when we were in communication, but before we got back together, I was near constantly getting triggered. So I for the sake of myself and being able to move forward, or what, at the time, what I felt like what I needed to do to overcome that was to temporarily cut contact. Not saying that anybody has to, right? Everyone's journey is different, but for me, it felt easier to maintain that wish fulfilled if I was not noticing the 3D constantly telling me what I don't want and showing me what I don't want. As far as letting go of insecurities and jealousy, revision, right? So, in any of the times where he was showing up in a certain way, or any of the times that he was showing up in a way that made you feel insecure, that made you feel jealous, and feel not good, not great, I would revise it. And imagine new memories where, in the past he showed up in a way that made you feel loved, it made you feel secure, it made you feel prioritized, it made you feel like you were on the pedestal, right? So things of that nature. If we are struggling to live in the end due to circumstances and things that happened in the past, first course of action is revise. First course of action is revision. Yeah. Let me go back. I revised something I did last week that I regretted doing, and yesterday I was reflecting on my week and literally couldn't remember what I did, and took me a while before I realized I revised it. Yep. Yep. Speaking of revision. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one's a powerful one. I have attempted revision a couple of times, and it has been full of resistance despite me telling myself that it is just for enjoyment. What do you recommend to help alleviate resistance with revision? Good question. So, despite just trying to do it for funsies or just to enjoy the feeling of it, you still notice resistance to it? Yeah. And that certainly can, if you're noticing, well, first you want to ask yourself, like, are you trying to just tell yourself that you're doing it for enjoyment? Like, does it feel like you're trying to trick yourself? Because we're not going to be, we're likely not going to find success with trying to, like, trick ourselves or coerce ourselves. So that said, you might want to play around with, instead of going back to old events or memories that were painful or not ideal and revising those, you know, try to imagine new memories. Try to create something that perhaps didn't happen, but you would have wanted to happen. That's not related to any specific memory or anything. Like, essentially construct a whole new one, and practice with the exploration of just doing it for fun's sake. Maybe it's not even related to the thing that you desire ultimately. Maybe it's related to something else, like something else that you desire, something that maybe there is not as much attachment or resistance to. Right? This is very much exercising a muscle. So I would start to just play and incorporate this in ways that maybe there's less resistance there. Um, yeah, yeah. This, it will become more second nature. That I can promise. Can absolutely promise. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Susan. I added it to the chat, but would love an answer to it. Is there a difference between twin flames and SP? I've heard you cannot manifest an SP. That's false. That, yeah, you can absolutely manifest a specific person. You can manifest a specific desire. Yeah. And anything that says otherwise is somebody else's limiting belief, right? Or perhaps an outpicturing of our own limiting belief. I know it's common teachings in the law of attraction that you can't manifest a specific person because it goes against their free will. As difficult as it is to first hear about it, there is no such thing as free will. Like, in our reality, somebody else does not have the independence to go around and do something outside of what we assume, because all we're doing is moving in and out of states. In our reality, we're moving in and out of realities, which contain the version of that person that is based on what we believe and assume to be true. So this is not manipulation. This is not coercion, because the only one that we're changing here is ourself. We're not even changing that other person out there. We're changing our own beliefs and assumptions about that person, right? As far as the difference between Twinflame and SP, and if I don't recall, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but twin flames are supposed to represent like people that you are meant to, like, you're destined to run into for the sake of your own growth and development or something. But in more of like a negative manner, like it's somebody who was put here to challenge you, if I recall. And again, it's been a long time since I've read anything about twin flames, so I could be wrong on that. But yeah, if we have a desire, that desire is a gift to us. It is a gift saying we are meant to have this experience. And if that desire is with a specific person, it's because we are meant to have an experience with that person, right? Not to say that it has to be a challenging one. It doesn't have to be like it's not like we are destined to suffer for this person or overcome it. No. So in that regard, it's not the same thing. Usually we do wind up growing and evolving due to the circumstances with a specific person, but yeah, anything that we desire is a gift. It's a gift that we are meant to experience. It's a reality that we are meant to experience, that we are meant to have. Yeah. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, I don't believe in twin flames anymore either. Also, the idea that like we are destined, like we have a destiny of some sort that we have to fulfill. No, no. All right, where was I? Thank you, Lauren. Circumstances with SP got worse again. I thought I was doing everything well. I'm back in the state of being overwhelmed with the LOA content because it's so much different from information confusing me. Oh, I'm so sorry, B. And yeah, I know that with the explosion in popularity of Neville, which in a lot of ways is a fantastic thing. I love that more people are becoming aware of the law of assumption. But with that, we have so much content out there. And a lot of it, from what I've seen and gathered, is not. I'm not going to say it's wrong or it's not true, but a lot of people are clearly have not read about this, taken a lot of things from other schools of thought and tried to mix it in here, and that's why we have so much conflicting information out there, and it leads to analysis paralysis, right? Like confusion due to so many people saying so many different things. My recommendation, if you can, read Neville or Joseph Murphy. They both are essentially talking about the same thing. They were both taught under Abdullah, right? The same person. I know that Neville can be a little challenging to understand. He speaks in a more of an old-fashioned way, but if you start with some of his books, like Feeling is the Secret, The Power of Awareness, Your Faith is Your Fortune, those those are going to be a bit more simple. Those are going to be a bit more easier to understand than perhaps some of his lectures. His books were written to, for the layman to understand, basically, right? So I would read Neville Goddard. Maybe cut out the videos or cut out, or maybe stick to whatever truly resonates with you. Um, and yeah, but I would definitely read Neville. Thank you for the super chat. Oh, it got two of them. Thank you, Lumos Twilight. SP and I never had a bad moment. Just stopped dating. I got text back. I get text back, but I'm not they're not the first to reach out. I'm tired of crickets in 3D. Any thoughts on how to change this? Yeah. Where this is most challenging is the what we're seeing in 3D, or in this case, the lack of movement in 3D. And we continue to bring that into awareness, right? What we have to do, and I know that this part is probably where people struggle the most, is we have to take our attention away from 3D. We have to. If we continue to bring into awareness, I don't have it, I don't have it, I don't have it, well, what are we perpetuating, right? Because the idea, first and foremost, is to have that experience, have that desired outcome in imagination, and continuing to imagine it until that experience feels real and we get the satisfaction of it as if it happened, right? So, yeah, yeah. Practice turning within. Practice when you close your eyes to imagine, when you go within to imagine, in those moments, the 3D does not exist. It doesn't, like, the 3D does not exist anymore. It is all imagination. And practice making that your home base. And it takes getting used to, but the more that we do that, that's how we ultimately overcome and reach the Sabbath, which is what we ultimately aim to do. We want to reach the Sabbath with anything that we desire. So yeah. It does get easier. And thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Fred. What to do when SP told me to move on just like 4 months ago? It's been 8 months of manifesting and I don't know what to do to get my desire. What I'm doing wrong, I've been doing inner conversations and affirming. Well, it's not the techniques that are important. It's what you are assuming. Like, what are you bringing into your awareness? From what you wrote, it's that you do not have it. That it's been X amount of time and I do not have it. That's what is being planted. Those are the seeds that are being planted, right? Like, one of the very first things that we have to do and what we have to practice on, and this is why it's so important to build your faith, because one of the very first things that we learn is that we cannot go off of the conditions of the 3D. We cannot continue to use the conditions of the 3D, continue to bring that into our awareness, and use that as reasons why it's not working. And when you say it's been 8 months of manifesting, does that mean 8 months of living in the end? Like, feeling into that confident place where you already know it is already solidified? Or is that 8 months of practicing or watching videos? Like, what I when you say 8 months of manifesting, I'm not quite sure what that means, but we have to get into the habit of cutting out the 3D. If we are continuing to take that with us, if we are continuing to go off of what the 3D is showing us, which is all just the past anyways, like, the 3D is not showing us anything new. The 3D is never showing us anything new. It's all the things that we were imagining yesterday or a week ago or a month ago. So we have to practice getting away from that. Like, that is number one, is practicing taking our attention away from 3D. That will keep us in a feedback loop. Yeah. Yeah. So, more important than just the techniques, note where you are dwelling. What are you assuming? What are the natural thoughts and feelings and reactions when you think about your person? Is it they are gone? They don't care about me? They don't want anything to do with me? Because if that is the first things that you are noting that's coming up, that's what we aim to change. That's what has to change. Yeah. Where was I? Yeah. A lot of people are saying that when doing sats, they've been trying to bring the visual into sleep. We don't need to do that. It is not about the visual scene that needs to go. It's getting ourselves into that feeling state and bringing that feeling state with us into sleep. Yeah. Yeah. It's always the feeling that we're aiming to get to. I was seeing movement and then I started noticing less movement. Will that in effect make me notice more of less movement? LOL, thank you. This is exactly why we want to take our attention away from 3D. Yeah. Yeah. If what we are bringing into awareness is there is less movement, that's what we are planting. And that's what will continue to be outpictured. So that's why we have to direct our attention away from it. Yeah. It is a practice. It's certainly a practice. I have heard that if you want to manifest a specific person, you cannot until your self concept is good, slash, you being your best version. What is your opinion? I know self concept is very important. I don't like that phrasing that you cannot manifest an SP until your self concept. That's a condition. That is us putting a condition on what we desire. Now, to be clear, we should absolutely be imagining the very best version of ourselves. We should be imagining the very best version of what we desire, right? The reality that we desire. We should be experiencing that as often as we are able in imagination. But to say that you cannot manifest XYZ until you do ABC is that's again that's us conditioning the desire. Now, if we are able to, go to the end. Go to the end. That's all there is to it. Go to the end. Now, absolutely, we want to, if we're noticing feelings of insecurity, feelings of not being good enough, anything that is not ideal, like, that is cue, that is feedback to us that perhaps this is something that we need to continue to recondition. But it's not that you need to do a bunch of things before going to the end with your person. No. Where? Um, Hi, Missy. How do you deal with co-parenting with SP and setting boundaries and often getting triggered? Yeah, good question. Yeah. When dealing with someone in 3D or something, in this case, co-parenting, where obviously there's a lot of interaction with the person in 3D, I would practice getting very good at two things. Number one, imagining what you desire to see as far as the boundaries set, imagine that those boundaries are being met and respected. And number two, revision for moments where you do feel triggered, something does happen that's not ideal. imagine instead that it went the way that you wanted it to go, right? So instead of whatever happened that triggered you, instead it was something more ideal, like a circumstance that was more ideal that played out instead, right? So yeah, I would get very clear and defined in imagination what what those boundaries are and what that would look like being met, and imagining that those boundaries are always being upheld, and then revision for any instances that something happened that was not ideal. Yeah. SP and I broke up 6 months ago. I've been working on understanding the law ever since. When we broke up, we were doing our best after a hard year. Was it then from all the old stuff leading up to that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You mean as far as the unwanted circumstances that played out? Yeah. Yeah. Everything that shows up in the 3D, eh, whatever is unfolding in the 3D circumstance was all things based on what we had been imagining, usually unconsciously. Um, Things that we had assumed, things that we might naturally have believed were going to happen. Yeah. Yeah. Which is why we want to treat the 3D like feedback. We want to treat the 3D as feedback into what we are impressing, consciously or unconsciously, and what beliefs and assumptions are we holding? Like what state dominantly are we occupying? Yeah. And that way we know what to change. Hi Missy, how do I talk about my manifestation without jeopardizing it? Thank you. Um, I'm not quite sure what you mean, Rebecca. Uh, how do you talk about? Well, I mean, if you're not comfortable talking about something, you certainly don't have to. But like just talking about it or the words alone is not in and of itself going to ruin your manifestation, right? If again, if it's something that feels really sensitive or triggering to you, and you don't want to go there, then you certainly don't have to. Um, but like if you need to, if you feel like you have to talk, or you need to react, or you need to get something off your chest, I mean, you can do so. You can do so. You can always come back to it later with revision. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. My desires seem impossible, as they are about an SP in 3D that is married and much older. In my imagination, they are my age and married to me. How to persist in this place? Completely ignore the 3D version? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And by ignoring the 3D, that means that we're not taking any of the conditions of the 3D with us into imagination. When we go into imagination, we have to remember that that is our world, right? That is our world completely. We have complete dominion over imagination and what happens in our imagination. Despite the 3D circumstances, we can always imagine being married to our person, living a wonderfully fulfilling life, having a successful business, or being abundant or wealthy, whatever that looks like. There are no conditions in imagination. It's anything that you want it to be, anything that you want to experience. And where a lot of us struggle is we take the seemingly impossible parts of the 3D and use that to sort of bar ourselves or feel unable to even go to the end in imagination. And that's a habit that we need to break. It is absolutely a habit that we need to break. which is why we must practice taking the attention away from 3D. Because in here, you and your person are already married. You and your person are already living the life you desire to live. Continue to go to that experience. Continue to allow yourself to really fulfill what that would be like, to the point of satisfaction. And once saturated, once impressed, it has to unfold. It has to lead you across that bridge. Yeah. How can I manifest a greater degree of inner self confidence and considerate but assertive selfishness? I don't quite know how to start. Good question, John. Well, first thing that we want to maybe practice or get familiar with is what ways of imagining feel most natural to us, right? For some people, that's going to be visualizing. Some people are going to be, better with affirmations or inner conversations. Some people, it's going to feel more natural. Some people are kinesthetic learners, so the sense of touch or things of that nature. So as far as like where to start, you first get familiar with that. So is there a way that you imagine that feels more real, that feels more natural to you, that feels like less resistance, for example? Um, and whatever that might be, use that to construct a world where you are showing up as that confident version of you, right? Even just asking the question, what would it be like if I had more confidence? How would my life be different? How would things look differently if I felt more confidence? Like, I'd be better at setting boundaries. I would be, I'd have people showing up with respect, right? A mutual respect with others in my world. Even just letting yourself letting yourself answer that question is going to start to get the ball rolling on that. Like your mind is primed to want to answer questions. If we ask ourselves a question, the mind is going to want to naturally answer it, right? It's going to start filling in those gaps, seemingly, if that makes sense. So if you haven't yet, start there. Start there by answering the question and see how those answers start to come up for you. And notice if you start to get visual images coming up, if you start to perhaps have inner conversations come up, right? Note what comes up for you and use that to sort of expand upon, if that makes sense. Let me know if if you need me to clarify anything of that. Thank you again for the super chat, Fred. Oh, and Rebecca, thank you for the super chat. I'm so sorry I missed that. Thanks, Missy. But when do we start to enjoy the 3D and not only imagination? When we have the desire? Also, if I want to be back with SP and get married, is it better to imagine after marriage or SP and I together? So when can we start enjoying the 3D? Well, and correct me if I'm misunderstanding your question, but yeah, once we are persistent with that imaginal act, it has to play out in 3D, right? So yeah, like, before then we have the experience and get familiar with it in imagination. That's how we change states. That's how we start to build on a new dominant state of consciousness, right? If you want to get back with SP and get married, is it better to imagine after marriage? Yeah. I would go to the end. A common scene that people play with is the 1-year wedding anniversary, right? Like, imagining the two of you together celebrating your 1-year anniversary. Would you travel somewhere together? What would you be doing? How would How would the conversation go? Things like that. But yeah, it's a perfect example of going to the end. Like, go to a place where, or hearing friends and family congratulating you after the wedding is another one. But yeah, yeah. I hope that clarifies. Let me know if I need to expand on anything. You say we need to change the general belief about this person, but how? How to stop focusing on how they were, but instead focus on how you want them to? It is a practice. It is a practice. But that's, for example, why revision is so powerful. Why revision can be such a powerful tool, because in imagination we do have the ability to see them differently. In our imagination, we can have them showing up in any way that we desire to see them show up, right? We are just used to, and it's our habit to go back to how they showed up in the past, right? Like, if we still have the memories of them showing up in a certain way, we're going to naturally go off of those old memories, right? Unconsciously. Which is why, if those, the old version of them, that version that perhaps is not ideal, we want to begin to recondition that. Yeah. And if you need me to be more specific, I can, but essentially how is revising. Is There are no limits to how we can perceive them and how we can see them showing up in imagination. No limits. Most of my manifestations happen when I thought that it's not going to happen and mentally dropped it in the trash. It would happen so fast, so hard to do this consciously. Yeah. Well, what you're describing there, JT, is a form of detachment. It's one form of detachment. It's not an ideal way to go about it. It's not one that I personally recommend, but yeah, a lot of times when we take the focus off of that manifestation, that's when it shows up. Because specifically, what we're doing is we're taking our attention off of the absence of that, right? We're no longer fixed on where is it? Why is it not here yet? Where is it? Why is it not here yet? And so once we take our attention away from that, that's when it shows up, right? Now, that said, it doesn't mean you have to give up and throw away your desire in order to manifest it. Not at all. Not at all. This really is a practice more than anything else. It is a practice of turning the attention inward instead of outward, more than anything. All right, I got time for maybe one or two more questions. Sorry, guys. So I'm trying to find my spot, guys. Sorry, one second. Sorry, guys. I know how to manifest my ex back with visualization, etc., but how do you do it if you desire meeting someone new? Good question. I mean, you can absolutely do this for somebody that you know prior or somebody completely new. If what you desire is a new relationship, I would first get very clear on what that looks like for you. So the traits of this person, characteristics, physical attributes, like what do you desire, and go as big and bold, be as specific as you desire to be. But I know some people make a list of their dream person and what are those traits and characteristics of them, right? And then you can, I mean, there's so many ways that you can go about imagining a new partner. It doesn't have to be like like visualizing them per se, like somebody that you haven't met before. I know that that might be challenging, but you can imagine conversations with close friends and family that you've met somebody amazing and hearing them congratulate you. They're so happy for you. Things of that nature. Or you can imagine, walking along with them, and if you are a more visual person, you know, imagine that you're walking and looking down and someone's holding your hand, right? Something that implies that you are with somebody. Those are just a couple of examples, but first and foremost, I would get clear on what that person is like, you know, your dream partner, so to speak, and then just continue to go back to any idea, anything that helps to invoke the feeling within you, that feeling of satisfaction and bliss and happiness, whatever comes up for you. Yeah. So is it like we can construct a new character and being in that, like a character role with a different background, history, etc.? Yes. I thought that might help to get more distance and less resistance. Yes, exactly. We can construct a whole new character, right? A whole new avatar, so to speak. Absolutely. Different background, different history, different traits, whatever you want it to look like. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly right. Thank you for the super chat. My SP is my crush. I really want to see my SP. We have been in no contact, not by choice. How do I manifest him back into my life? Good question. And this really is the loaded question that a lot of people are here for. I would watch. I've made several videos on the topic of manifesting a person. If you search my channel, I made a video about my own journey and what I did personally that I would definitely recommend checking out. But I mean, in a nutshell, you want to take the attention away from the 3D circumstance. You want to get rid of any of the perceived obstacles, any of the reasons why this isn't going to work, any of the fears and doubts and limitations, what might feel impossible to you. Throw that in the trash and construct in your imagination things that would imply that the two of you are together. Be it going on dates, be it friends and family congratulating you, whatever that looks like. But the practice here is turning within. The practice here is constructing this world in imagination, because your imagination is a blank slate and you are able to create anything that you desire in here. So it's the practice of strengthening that imagination muscle while at the same time getting rid of whatever perceived doubts and limitations and 3D circumstances that might be telling you that this isn't possible, this isn't going to work. You got to do away with all of that. All of that. Okay? But definitely check out the videos that I made about I made one about my own personal journey with my person. And there's success stories of other people and how they got their person. Yeah. If you search the YouTube search bar, Missy Renee Manifest an SP, you'll have a multitude of videos come up for sure. What if me and my SP had so many arguments and stuff? Should I revise every single one of them or revise our dynamic in general? I would revise the dynamic in general. It may feel daunting to go back and revise every single argument. I mean, you can if you wanted to, but that might feel a little bit daunting. So for me, I would definitely just, you can create a new memory that implied that the dynamic between you two was different than what you might recall now. And that's how I would approach it. All right. All right, you guys. Unfortunately, I do have to get going. Damn it. I actually stayed a little bit longer than I was going to originally, but I really enjoy being here with everyone. This is my favorite day of the week for a reason. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm so sorry I was not able to get to everybody today, and I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but I will be back next week. I come here every week on Sundays, so if I didn't get to you today, rest assured, come back and see me next week. Much love to all of you, as always. Please take care of yourself. Remember always how powerful you truly are. Much love, and see you next time, you guys. Have a good rest of your weekend.